Maya thought she had it figured out. At 55, her 401k balance read $600,000. Every raise, she bumped her contribution, and every single year, she maxed it out. Her advisor smiled warmly and called her a model client. Her father called her responsible, and her app showed a green line climbing. On paper, at 55, Maya was quietly winning. But here's what nobody told Maya about that $600,000. It wasn't really all hers, and it never had been. A silent partner owned a slice, and that partner was the IRS. Every dollar she deferred, she borrowed a tax bill from her future self. And that hidden bill was growing at 7% a year, right beside her. By the time she turned 73, the number attached to it was staggering. $340,000 gone to taxes she could have avoided. Not to a scam, not to a market crash, but to one decision at 55. The decision to keep doing the exact thing everyone praised her for. This is the hidden math behind the retirement account you were told to trust. Now let's be very clear about what this video is not. This is not the internet telling you your 401k is a scam. It isn't a scam, and for most people, it's the best wealth tool they own. The free employer match is free money, and walking away from it is a mistake. So if you take one wrong lesson from today, please take none of it. We are not saying stop saving. We are saying something far more specific. There is an age where the pre-tax 401k quietly flips on you. For millions of disciplined Americans, that age is somewhere around 55. Not because the account changes, but because the math around it changes. Before 55, deferring taxes usually helps you, and that part is very real. After 55, overstuffing that same account can quietly start to cost you. The problem has a name, and retirees feel it the year they turn 73. It's called the tax torpedo, and it is brutally, mathematically real. Most people never see it coming because it hides silently for decades. It waits while your balance grows, and your confidence grows right along with it. Then it detonates the year the government finally forces you to withdraw. So before you dismiss any of this as clickbait, hear this one thing. The people hurt most by the 401k are not the reckless spenders. They're the disciplined savers who did everything they were ever told to do. Let's keep this fair, and let's make it painfully concrete. Meet two women, both 55, both earning $130,000 a year. Both have exactly $600,000 sitting in a traditional 401k. Same job, same salary, same balance, and the same dream of retiring at 65. The first woman is Maya, and the second woman is Denise. On paper, they are financial twins, and their only difference is one decision. Denise does what almost everyone does and keeps maxing her pre-tax 401k. $30,000 a year, catch-up included, straight into the traditional bucket. It feels responsible, it lowers her taxes today, and her advisor applauds the move. Maya makes exactly one change at 55, and only one. She keeps contributing enough to grab every dollar of her employer match. But she stops overstuffing the pre-tax bucket with anything beyond that. The extra money now flows into a Roth and a taxable brokerage account instead. Same total savings, same discipline, different buckets. That is the whole difference. Now let's run both women forward and watch the quiet math unfold. Denise's pre-tax balance keeps snowballing, untaxed, year after year after year. By 65, her traditional 401k has crossed $1.5 million. By 73, with more growth, it is brushing $2.5 million. She feels rich, and in a real way she is, but watch closely now. At 73, the IRS stops being patient and suddenly gets hungry. That is the year required minimum distributions begin under current law. The government now forces Denise to withdraw a slice every single year. That very first forced withdrawal is roughly $94,000. She doesn't need it, she didn't ask for it, but she absolutely must take it. And every dollar of it lands on her return as ordinary, fully taxable income. Stacked on her Social Security, that withdrawal shoves her into higher brackets. Now Maya, the twin who stopped overfunding, tells a very different story. Her traditional balance is smaller on purpose, closer to $1.2 million. During her 60s, before RMDs even started, she had a quiet, low-income window. In those gap years, she converted chunks of her 401k into a Roth. She filled the 12 and 22% brackets on purpose, then stopped. She paid a little tax early, deliberately, at rates she could actually control. By 73, her required withdrawal is roughly $45,000, not $94,000. Her Roth money comes out completely tax-free, and it never counts against her. Two women, same start, same savings. One controlled the tax and one did not. Let's put real ages on this, not vague someday numbers. At 55, both women have 30 full working years behind them. Both started saving seriously at 25, and both rode the exact same market. Neither picked hot stocks, neither timed anything. They just contributed and waited. That is why this comparison is fair. Nothing separates them but tax strategy. Denise's logic sounds airtight. Lower my taxes now and deal with it later. And for her 30s and 40s, that logic was completely, provably correct. A dollar deferred in a high-earning year is a dollar working a little harder. But Denise never asked the second question, deferred until when and taxed at what? She simply assumed her tax rate in retirement would be lower than today. For decades that assumption held, but near retirement it quietly stopped being true. Maya asked that second question at 55 and the answer changed everything. She realized her retirement income might not be lower at all. Between Social Security, a small pension, and a huge account, she'd be flush. Flush income in retirement means the same brackets she was trying to dodge. So Maya stopped assuming and started planning around the actual future numbers. Here's what nobody tells you about deferring your taxes. Deferring a tax is simply not the same thing as avoiding a tax. When you defer, you don't erase the bill, you just reschedule it for later. And you let that bill ride the market, growing right alongside your gains. Picture $1,000 you didn't pay tax on at 55. You invest it, and over 18 years at 7% it becomes about $3,000. That's wonderful, until you remember all $3,000 is now fully taxable. You deferred tax on $1,000 and quietly created tax on $3,000. The government was thrilled to wait, because waiting made their cut much bigger. Most people think deferral means the IRS forgets. The IRS never forgets. It just lets your obligation compound patiently and silently for a few decades. Run the numbers, and deferral starts to look like a loan you gave yourself. A loan where future you pays the interest, and the IRS quietly collects it. That is the deferral illusion, and it fools the most disciplined savers hardest. Because the more diligently you save, the bigger that deferred bill becomes. Now, deferral still wins when your future tax rate is genuinely lower. A high earner in their peak years often absolutely should defer. That's real. But near 55, you must ask what your future rate will actually be. If your retirement income will be high, that future rate simply isn't lower. And if tax rates themselves rise over time, deferral can quietly backfire. Here's exactly what happens the year Denise turns 73. The government forces a withdrawal called a required minimum distribution. It's calculated from her balance, and it rises as she gets older. On $2.5 million, that first pull is near $94,000. Now here's the part that almost nobody ever sees coming. That withdrawal doesn't just get taxed politely on its own. It drags her Social Security right into the taxable column along with it. Under the rules, up to 85% of that benefit can become taxable. So each extra dollar of RMD can pull 85 cents of Social Security into tax. For a stretch of income, she is effectively taxed on almost $2 at once. Fidelity and other analysts have a blunt name for this, the tax torpedo. It can push a retiree's effective tax rate above a shocking 40%. Read that again. Over 40% on money she saved to save on taxes. Denise deferred at 22% and will now withdraw at nearly 40%. She didn't beat the IRS at all. She financed it with heavy interest. Maya avoided the torpedo entirely by keeping her forced withdrawals small. Her RMD is $45,000, not $94,000, so far less ever spills over. Her Roth withdrawals stay completely invisible to that taxation formula. Same Social Security check, but two completely different tax bills at the end. That is the torpedo, and it targets the biggest pre-tax balances first. Most people have never heard the word IRMAA until it quietly bills them. IRMAA is a surcharge on your Medicare premiums, tied directly to your income. The more income you report, the more you pay for the exact same coverage. And guess what counts as income here? Those required withdrawals absolutely do. In 2026, the surcharge tiers for a couple start around $218,000. Cross that line by a single dollar, and the whole surcharge kicks in. It's a cliff, not a gentle ramp. $1 over and you fully pay. At the top, Part B premiums jump from about $200 to nearly $700. That's per person per month for the same Medicare everyone else receives. Denise's $94,000 RMD sails her straight past those income lines. So on top of income tax, she now quietly pays an invisible Medicare tax. Over a 15-year retirement, those surcharges add up to very real money. Thousands a year, times 2 people, times well over a decade of premiums. Maya, with her smaller withdrawals, ducks neatly under that first IRMAA cliff. Same doctors, same coverage, but only a fraction of the monthly premium. Nobody warned Denise because IRMAA doesn't appear until she's already 73. By then, the balance is built, and the torpedo is fully armed. This is the second hidden cost of overfunding one single pre-tax account. The first cost is income tax. The second is a Medicare surcharge stacked on top. Here's a rule almost no 55-year-old actually knows how to use. It's called the Rule of 55, and it's been hiding in plain sight. Normally, touching a 401k before 59.5 means a 10% penalty. But the Rule of 55 carves out one genuinely powerful exception. If you leave your job in the year you turn 55 or later, you can pull from that employer's 401k with no penalty at all. Not from an IRA, not from an old plan, that specific current employer's plan. This is the bridge that most careful savers never even think to build. It lets you tap retirement money early, penalty-free, to fund your late 50s. Why does that matter for our tax story? Because it quietly creates flexibility. Maya knows she doesn't have to defer everything and just wait until 73. She can retire at 58 and live partly off penalty-free 401k money. That lets her keep her taxable income low and controlled in the years after. Low income in your early 60s is not a problem you have to survive. It's a rare opportunity to exploit, and the Rule of 55 opens that door. Denise never learned the rule, so she assumed her money was fully locked away. Locked money feels like a great reason to just keep stuffing the account. Maya saw an exit ramp exactly where Denise saw a solid brick wall. Here's the simple mental model Maya used to fix the entire problem. Picture your retirement income as coming from 3 completely different buckets. Bucket 1 is pre-tax, your traditional 401k and traditional IRA. Every dollar out is taxed as ordinary income, and RMDs force those dollars out. Bucket 2 is Roth. It's taxed going in, and then it's free forever after. No RMDs, no torpedo, no Medicare surcharge, and honestly, no strings attached. Bucket 3 is taxable, your plain, ordinary, regular brokerage account. It's taxed gently, at lower capital gains rates, and it stays wonderfully flexible. Most Americans retire with one giant pre-tax bucket and absolutely nothing else. That is not a plan. That is a single, fragile point of tax failure. When all your money is pre-tax, the IRS effectively controls your retirement rate. When you hold all 3 buckets, you quietly take that control back for yourself. In a high-tax year, you sip from the Roth bucket and pay almost nothing. In a low-tax year, you pull from pre-tax and cheaply fill the low brackets. That control is the entire point, and it is worth a great deal of money. Maya spent her 50s and 60s carefully building the 2 missing buckets. Denise spent those same years making the one bucket she had even bigger. Now here's the single move that quietly saved Maya the most money of all. Financial planners call it the gap years, and they are absolutely pure gold. It's the window after you stop working, but before your RMDs are forced to begin. For many people, that's roughly age 60 all the way to 73. In those years, your paycheck is gone, but your withdrawals aren't forced yet. Suddenly, your taxable income can drop down to almost nothing at all. And that low-income valley is quietly the best tax opportunity of your life. Here's what Maya did with it, deliberately, every single year without fail. She converted a careful slice of her traditional 401k into her Roth. She converted just enough each year to fill up the low tax brackets. She'd fill the 12% bracket, then the 22%, and then firmly stop. She paid tax on that money now, on purpose, at genuine bargain rates. Every dollar she converted is a dollar that will never trigger a future RMD. It's a dollar that will never again inflate her Medicare premium. It's a dollar that will never drag her Social Security back into tax. She's shrinking the future explosion, one small controlled conversion at a time. By 73, her traditional balance is a fraction of what it would have been. Smaller balance, smaller RMD, smaller torpedo, and quietly smaller everything. Denise, still grinding the old plan, skipped this golden window completely. She kept deferring so her 60s income stayed high and her brackets stayed full. There was simply no valley to exploit because she never let one form. The gap years are a rare sale on taxes, and most people sleep right through it. Maya set her alarm at 55 and showed up for it every single year. Now let me stop you before you go and make the opposite mistake. Do not here stop overfunding and decide to quit contributing entirely. That is the wrong lesson to take, and it is an expensive one. The employer match is the closest thing to truly free money that exists. A 50% match is an instant 50% return, basically guaranteed. No investment on earth reliably beats that kind of return on day one. Walking away from the match to dodge future taxes is completely backwards. You'd surrender a certain gain today just to avoid a possible tax tomorrow. So Maya never actually stopped contributing. She contributed up to the full match. Every free matching dollar she took, but not $1 more into pre-tax. The dollars beyond the match are the only ones that ever got redirected. Those flowed into her Roth and into a plain, taxable brokerage account. Same savings rate, same iron discipline, just pointed at smarter buckets. This is the exact nuance that the clickbait headlines always completely destroy. Stop contributing is lazy advice. Stop over-concentrating is the real smart move. The account was never the enemy here. Overloading one tax type is. Maya kept every drop of the free money and simply dropped the tax time bomb. Here's a trap the tax code set specifically for people in their early 60s. Starting in 2026, there's a super catch-up for ages 60 to 63. It lets you shovel even more money into your 401k than ever before. The regular deferral limit for 2026 is $24,500. Add the standard catch-up and 50-plus savers can reach $32,500. But at 60 to 63, that catch-up jumps to $11,250. That pushes the personal limit all the way to $35,750. It sounds like a generous gift, and the headlines all cheerfully call it one. But look very closely at who it targets and exactly when it hits. It hands you the biggest pre-tax shovel during your precious gap years. The very window you should use to shrink the account. It tempts you to grow it. For a diligent saver like Denise, that temptation is almost irresistible. More contribution room simply feels like more responsible, virtuous saving. But poured into a pre-tax bucket at 62, it just feeds the torpedo. Maya saw the super catch-up clearly for exactly what it was for her. Not a gift, but a bigger shovel for a hole she was busy filling in. She used Roth contributions instead, and calmly let Denise keep digging. So let's finally add it all up, the exact way Maya did on a napkin. Start with the plain income tax gap between the two women. Denise withdraws hundreds of thousands more from a pre-tax account in retirement. At torpedo rates near 40% instead of 20%, the tax difference is enormous. On the forced withdrawals alone, that gap is well over $100,000. Now layer in all the Social Security that gets dragged into tax. More of Denise's benefit is taxed year after year for decades on end. That is tens of thousands more, quietly siphoned right off the top. Now add the IRMAA surcharges she pays for crossing those income cliffs. Thousands every year for two people across a long 15-year stretch. Stack income tax, plus taxed Social Security, plus the Medicare surcharges. Add the growth Maya kept by paying small taxes early instead of large ones late. Run the numbers on a $600,000 saver and the gap lands near $340,000. $340,000 separating two women who saved identically. Not from luck, not from returns, purely from which bucket happened to hold the money. Now, is your number going to be exactly $340,000? Probably not. Yours depends on your balance, your brackets, and the state you retire in. But the shape of the underlying math is exactly the same for everyone. The bigger your pre-tax balance at 55, the bigger your torpedo at 73. And the more a few deliberate moves in between are quietly worth to you. Maya's $340,000 was never earned by working any harder. It was simply kept by thinking one question deeper than everyone around her. Here's the part that flips this whole thing completely on its head. Everyone talks about the traditional 401k as a tax break. It really isn't. A traditional 401k doesn't give you a tax break. It gives you a tax delay. And here's the line worth burning into your memory tonight. You were never saving on tax. You were borrowing it from your future self at the rate the IRS sets. Sit with that for a second because it quietly rewrites the entire strategy. When you contribute pre-tax, the government becomes a silent partner in your account. They own a percentage of it. They just haven't told you which percentage yet. They get to decide it decades from now, based on future law and your future income. You took a guaranteed deduction at a known rate to accept an unknown rate later. For a young low earner, that trade is often absolutely brilliant. For a 55-year-old with a swelling balance, that same trade can quietly flip. Now here's the truly counterintuitive move that almost no one ever makes. Sometimes the smartest thing a diligent saver can do is pay tax early. On purpose, voluntarily, before they're ever forced to at a much worse rate. It feels deeply wrong because every instinct screams, defer, defer, defer. But paying 22% today to dodge 40% tomorrow is a bargain. The people who retire with the least tax stress aren't the biggest deferrers. They're the ones who paid a little, deliberately at exactly the right time. Denise maximized her deferral and quietly minimized her own control. Maya gave up a little deferral and bought herself a lifetime of control. One woman optimized for the small tax break of a single year. The other optimized for the tax bill of the entire next 30 years. And that difference is why one retires calm and one retires cornered. Think for a moment about how strange this whole thing really is. We spend our careers being told exactly one thing: defer, defer, defer. Every tool, every default, every gentle advisor nudge points the very same way. The whole system is built to fill that pre-tax bucket automatically for you. So the disciplined saver, doing precisely as told, overfills it by design. The mistake isn't laziness. The mistake is following the default a little too well. That's why this hits the responsible people hardest, not the reckless ones. The reckless never saved quite enough to build a real torpedo. The responsible built a beautiful one, brick by brick, and lit the fuse themselves. So if you're 55 and proud of a big pre-tax balance, that's good. You already did the hard part. You saved. Now go do the subtle part. Stop assuming the rules that helped you at 30 still help you now. Ask the second question Denise never asked: taxed at what rate and when? The 401k was never actually the trap. Blind, one-directional deferral was. So where does all of this leave you, whatever age you are today? If you're under 45, keep deferring. Fill that bucket, your future rate is likely lower. If you're closing in on 55, it's finally time to look up from the default. Pull up your actual balance and honestly picture it doubling by 73. Ask what your income will really be and which bracket it truly lands in. Then decide, on purpose, how much more pre-tax money you actually want. Keep the match. Always, always keep the match, because that part never changes. But everything above the match is a real choice, not a silent autopilot. You can keep feeding one bucket, or you can start building all three. You can accept the IRS as a silent partner or quietly buy them out early. None of this requires you to earn more money or work any longer. It just requires thinking one honest question deeper than the headline. That's the whole game on this channel. No hustle culture and no shame. Just the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every single day. If that's the kind of clear thinking you want a lot more of, subscribe to Maya Wealth and go ahead and hit that notification bell. We break down the hidden math behind the money choices nobody ever explains. And please remember this one thing, long after the numbers fade away. Don't stop saving. Just stop letting one account set your tax rate for 30 years. Make the decision that matches your reality, not someone else's sales pitch.